Good evening, everybody. This is Jimmy Pockets, aka James of Empty Pockets Garage. Tonight, I got like 6 or 7 things I want to go over. Good evening, everybody. Like, all these corporations now all of a sudden are doing away with their DEI programming or programs. Now, our U.S. government's trying to get a bill passed, or I think that's what it is. I've seen where the Democrats were arguing over it today. But, they're always going to argue. They don't like it because a lot of their friends are going to get fired, and they should. But it's just funny how the change of, let's say, change of the guard, a new president, and now all of a sudden DEI is something that's just a pain in the ass, a hindrance to these companies. Why they ever did it is beyond me, but I'm glad they're doing it. So, that's a short subject. We'll see where that goes, especially with them arguing about it in Congress right now about going back to the 50s, blacklisting, whatever. That's not blacklisting. It's telling you that you've got to be hired for your qualifications and not your gender or your race or your LGBTQ plus 4 status. So saying that, I'm glad. Bye-bye. DEI can go. And I was watching the news. The just the threat of tariffs. It's amazing what can be done with these other countries. Hey, Edward, how you doing, bro? Hi, Betty. Oh yeah, I agree, Betty. You're right. DI has ruined customer service. Although I have to tell you, coming from a mechanics background, dealing with uh, brand new parts that don't work or they send you the wrong part, customer service has been going away for quite some time now. Because I've had to deal with that a lot over the years. And I used to love buying my parts locally because then I could go and interact with the people who sold me the part. And they, in the old days, uh, you know, they'd be more than happy to make it right, whether the part's bad and they really don't care if the part's bad anymore because a lot of them have that warranty on it, so it's no skin off their knuckles. Now, saying that, if they if you order a part through them and they get the wrong part in and they sell it to you and you don't realize it till you get home, then you go back, they want to argue with you about it. Yeah, so customer service is not what it used to be, especially now with the age of shipping, mail order. A lot of my performance parts, because back in the day, the town I live in, we didn't really have we still don't have like a speed shop or something like that here. So Jags, which is about 35 miles from here in Columbus, you'd have to drive over there to get your parts. But then they did mail order, and Jags is one of the few places that still has really good customer service. But if you got to deal with like stuff off the eBay or even Amazon, I've had issues with Amazon and Temu. I don't know about them too much yet. I've bought a couple things off Temu. Uh, fairly cheap stuff, obviously, but and so far I've not really had an issue with what I got. But if I ever do have an issue, I'll see how good their customer service is in the future. Yeah, Betty, they do act like asses, absolutely. Well, they I don't know what it is, but in customer service anymore, they first want to blame you, like you ordered the wrong part. They got in what you ordered. No, I see. I never played that game. I knew too much about what I was doing to order in the wrong part. Now I have guessed and ordered a part just by guessing because I didn't have the car. I didn't look at the car yet, and I have ordered the wrong part. But I accepted that, and that was my deal, and I never blamed them for it. But yeah, I was getting ready, Nancy. I was just absolutely getting ready to talk about the tariffs, the threat of tariffs. People talk about tariffs are a bad thing, and it could be, uh, but it seems funny how fast Canada, Trudeau already got a hold of Trump and talked about they didn't really have a problem. Their borders are secure supposedly, but they will step up the efforts uh, to work with America on that, so they don't have to deal with tariffs. Mexico, their president's already said that they're turning around these caravans that were on their way up here, trying to get in under the wires, so to say, so to speak, before Trump uh, takes over on the 20th of January. Yeah, yeah, Martin, that's what this is. I never, I don't see people doing live streams, Martin, at this time of night. So people that have alternative schedules, or even people who are, live across the pond, who are 8, 10, 12 hours difference than us. I thought, well, I have weird hours, how I sleep and everything. So I thought, well, why not do this night owl version? Uh, I never expect a lot of people to get in on this, but obviously there are a few of us out here that something to do, can't sleep, don't really want to watch TV per se, uh, engage in some conversation. And if, I say it all the time. I invite anybody who wants to come and get on camera with me. Uh, you can always email me your email address if you ever want to do it in the future. And I can email you a link and you can be on here and we can actually have a verbal conversation, not just chat. So, I put that out there. So far, nobody's ever took me up on it. I don't know why. I guess they don't want to be in front of the camera. Like I have a face for radio, but you know, this is what I do now. Getting back to the tariffs, of course, you expect China to say what they said. Of course, Trump only threatened them with 10% tariffs, which is nothing like the 25% he threatened Mexico and Canada with. So I think we'll see some changes with China uh, going forward with that. They act like they could, they try to act tough, but so far, anytime Trump's had negotiations with something with China, uh, as far as I know, I don't ever remember that he didn't come out on top with the negotiations. I mean, we haven't had that many when he was in office, but we did have a few. So we'll see where that goes after Trump gets in office. I I've been talking. Excuse me. I've been talking a lot about the Ukraine Russia deal. I worry about the firing off on these uh, short range, mid range ballistic missiles and all this other stuff. And now everybody's puffing their chest up, which is not what we want them to do. They're doing exactly things that will bring us to the brink of war. And it just drives me crazy. Thanks, Betty. Yeah, and somebody, I keep getting asked about the Haitian issue here since Trump won. What's it like here? It's gotten kind of quiet, almost too quiet, if you know what I mean. But just last week, uh, a guy I know went to go get a U. I've said this before. He went to go get a U-Haul, and there were none available, and they were not rented to like how people rent them for 24 hours and bring them back or whatever. These were all rented to go one way. So you couldn't get a U-Haul here locally last week. I don't know how it is going to be this week, being the holidays and everything, but because I don't even know if they probably don't recognize our holiday. It's nothing to them. So far it's to the positive on that, them leaving town. Of course, not all of them are going to leave. Some of them do have jobs. They are here under that temporary protective status. So, it's not like they can be just booted out. They're not illegal per se. Uh, at least how they got here, I feel, is criminal. But that's our government's fault, not theirs. Hey, Wade, Sacramento. Oh, I don't know. How's life in Sacramento? I talk about California from time to time, and I feel for the regular residents there with all the stuff that your governor does, but he keeps getting reelected. So apparently people want him there. So the way things are is the way things are. And I seen, did y'all see this? They had a conference. Uh, I believe it was with Pete Buttigieg. Uh, all the manufacturers of EV vehicles went to. I think it was. I think they went to Washington to do it. But anyways, they had this roundtable discussion. Because Biden mandated electric vehicles by 2030 to be a certain level of production. Do you know who wasn't invited? Elon Musk. Would you not think that Tesla would be part of that conversation? I mean, they lead the way in technology on the EV vehicles. It's all political bullshit. Everything is all about politics, not about the good of the people. It's just downright stupid. I don't know about you guys, but I am so sick and tired of the government thinking they know better than us. Yeah. I got a buddy. He don't call him Gavin Newsom. He calls him Gavin Newscum. Yeah, Betty. Sorry, everybody. I paused 'cause I'm reading the chat. Um, Sometimes you'll see me do that because I'm trying. I like to interact with the chat room as much as possible because after all, that's why we're here. We're just here having a conversation. On a Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. But Nothing better to do. And so I, I give you something to do. Yeah, Betty. The most of them here act civilized, but there are some. That's why if you've ever watched all the stuff that went on here, you've seen time and time and time women getting up to the podium at our town commission meetings and telling them about the problem. The police isn't doing nothing about it. You know, they're not doing nothing about it. Where they go to the grocery store and the men get right up on the women, like if they're in line or whatever, at the checkout. Howdy, John. Rusty, what's going on, brother? But and they're just downright rude to the women and perverted in a way. I mean, so for the most part, most of them act civilized. They're men. The women seem to be just trying to live life with their family, their kids, or whatever. But the men, I don't know, something about them that's just off. I worry about it because they're used to handling everything with violence in their country. They act like they don't, but they do. They handle everything with violence. So I'm sure there's going to be a faction of them that are here that will be deported, but will fight and maybe even do something horrific to act out or whatever you want to call it, uh, to try to stay here to evade the authorities or whatever. But we'll see. Time will tell. I'm sure that we're probably one of the first towns they're going to look at after Trump gets in office on the 20th. Yeah, Wade, California state government is off the rails. That is absolutely true. Just why do they keep voting people like that in there? I hate to say it, when they say you get what you vote for. That's like on all these people doing these TikTok and YouTube videos, screaming into the camera and crying and shaving their heads and talking about how stupid we are and evil we are and we get what we deserve. You voted for this. How do you like it? You voted for this. And it's so funny because he's not even taken office yet. And they're acting like he's already done something that we should be disapproving of. I mean, he's already made good progress and not even taken office yet on the border situation. He is working, from what I understand, behind the scenes on trying to calm down the situation between Ukraine and Russia. Although our government, along with UK and France, of all places, are trying to escalate this for some reason. Yeah, John. Yeah. Um, Nancy, that is part of the problem. And I mentioned that in my a video I made recently. I also mentioned it on live stream too about all the known gangs that is a problem. Not just they're there, the ones that are actually causing a problem in 16 states. In places like even Tennessee, where they have 4 major gangs, Venezuelan and Haitian gangs. And in Florida, they have Venezuelan and Haitian gangs. And Montana, Wyoming, I mean, obviously, Chicago and Illinois, New York. Colorado. I mean, it's crazy uh, that our government is allowing this to happen. To be able to take over apartment complexes or entire blocks of housing to basically hold hostage the residents who live in those areas. And our government doesn't do anything about it yet. What does it say yet? Buddy, I've been watching those, the ones that says uh, they're not gonna give any more sex up. Uh, I mean, they're divorcing their husbands. They're killing relatives, which is downright insane. But the basically this whole thing has made them do kind of like what the conservative side wanted them to do anyway. Quit being a hoe. You know what I'm saying? That right there is going to help with the abortion issue. Just they're going to quit being a hoe. Now they say that, but I give it 3 months. Mark my words. Because if they're hoes, and if you look, I hate to say it, I mean, because I'm not a good-looking guy, but a lot of them women that are doing this are some homely-looking things. It's like I bet they give out just in desperation. I don't see a lot of them getting hit on very much, to be honest with you, if they go out to mingle, to meet people. What's that, Rusty? Story. I paid to work at migrant shelter in Chicago. Sure makes $300,000 a year, and low-key employees make $160,000. See, and I said that about some of the people here who defend the Haitians being here. The ones who defend them being here are the ones that are tied to them with their paychecks. You can almost every single time when they get up, like at our town meetings, when they get up there at that podium and they want to defend the Haitians being here and everybody else is racist and stupid, you can guarantee they got a job to where they interact with them, and it's tied to their paycheck, and they don't want that paycheck to go away. Yeah, Russ, that's what I just saying. It's so them girls abstaining from having sex, keep from stop being a hoe. There won't be no abortions being happening. But like I said, I give that 3 months. Yeah, Martin, that's fewer STDs. Yeah, it solves a lot of things. I mean, they're basically doing exactly what the conservative side has been asking people to do for a long time. Be responsible. Don't just put out, look for, I mean, although they're not looking for a relationship right now, I give it 3 months. But, check that box, problem solved. I mean, these problems are getting solved by themselves. It's so funny. Yeah, Nancy, when that happens, you're right. If they take away the free housing, the food, and all that, just, it's like in New York, because even though they were probably getting some federal assistance, New York is so expensive. The state of New York, the city of New York, rather, had to spend money out of their budget to subsidize that. And, once that went away, now you had people, they're all like up in arms there, like they act entitled. It's like they expect that now. That's the problem. They got here and that's how the Democrats work. They use all these programs to entice you, to give you all these entitlements. Even people that's not really paid into the system. Because let's be honest, even if they pay taxes, usually their income level, they get it all back and then some at the end of the year. So the entitlements, it's got to be trimmed. I, I'm compassionate just like the next person, but the entitlements has got to be trimmed down. And these people that are here from other countries, I used to be a time that if you come here, you had to be sponsored by somebody, and that sponsor is responsible for your well-being. If that person don't get a job, then they're not entitled to government assistance. So the person who sponsors them is responsible for them for 5 years while they're trying to get citizenship. I don't know what happened to that program, but that seemed to went out the window with this latest administration. Let's see. Yeah, Betty, racist, and yeah, yep. Do you know, Betty, they use that word racist so much, it don't mean the same thing as it used to. It's like them calling him Hitler every 5 sentences. They use the word Hitler in there to describe Donald Trump. These young ones don't understand what that really means to call somebody that. All they know is Hitler was bad. They don't really understand what it means to have 6 million people sent to the gas chambers. And I think it was a total of 8 million people died total in the war itself. 8 million, and then total 6 million, and then the other 2 million. So when they don't understand what that word means, so it gets watered down with the way they do it today. Because obviously these other crazy people who are getting on the camera and screaming and crying and shaking their head and all kinds of things, it's people like Joy Reid that spark those kind of people's responses, because that woman on MSNBC is a straight up racist, and she spouts some of the nastiest stuff that just ain't even close to being true. But yet, if that's who you're watching, the Rachel Maddows, Joe Scarboroughs, and Joy Reids of the world, yeah, you feel like you're about to end up in a world that's harmful to you. But people always forget he's already done it 4 years. I mean, he could have done it the first time and he didn't do it. Yeah, you're right. Especially during the Madison Square Garden rally, when they had that whole group of Jews there, and yet they still talk about it. It was a remnants of the Nazi Party being there back in the 30s with Jewish people there. So they don't make no sense. It's kind of like it's kind of like during COVID when President Trump called it the China virus. They called him racist. Now, what does calling a virus, the China virus, because that's where it came from, how did that ever become racist? Because China is a location. And that's what he meant when he said it was a China virus. Not a Chinese virus, a China virus. But yet they still called him racist 24/7 when that was going on. They make no sense. They make none at all. Rusty, that's one of my talking points tonight. I watched those clips. I don't watch The View, but I did watch the clips because they're fun. Yeah, Anna Navarro and Whoopi Goldberg got in a little tat Because Whoopi is basically saying, because their show is up on the chopping block, it can be canceled. So she's saying basically, calm it down. Don't, because they're constantly having to make it at legal statement every time they say something really screwed up that's not true. Then they have to come back and read that legal statement of to try to exonerate them or whatever. So Whoopi is saying until he's done something, so far he's not done anything yet. He's not even taken in office yet. Uh, just calm it down a little bit. Anna Navarro's like, no, we can't. We have to call it out for what it is and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, they got in a little spat. That was kind of funny. And that's Sonny Holston. That right there, that's one straight up. I hate to say this. Pardon my language. That's one straight up bitch. I mean, she's just a mean, nasty person. And I seen a program where she was on. She had her DNA done, like that 23andMe thing. And come to find out, they did her family history that her family owned slaves, and that just broke her heart. Oh, she was devastated about that. So it just goes to show you. But then she wanted to say, well, I'm proud of my family because look how far we've come. Why can't she say that about the rest of us? I tell you right now, my family wasn't here. My dad's side of the family wasn't here till after the Civil War. So my middle name, and I'll not tell you what it is, but my great grandfather father was a sharecropper, and he used to work in the fields along with some ex-slaves, and he become best friends with the gentleman. And my middle name is my great grandfather's name, and it's because he was named after that uh, ex-slave that my great great grandfather worked the fields with. So I'm proud to have that middle name, even though it's an odd one. uh, but that just goes to show you, you can't judge a book by its cover, because you would not think that, because my family's from the South, that they would have that kind of interaction. They figure if you're white and in the South back in the turn of the century and all up through the 60s, you were automatically racist. And it just wasn't true. Well, Whoopi's done, John, she's done recanted her statement about leaving the country, because she said she changed her mind. She's going to stay here and fight for what's right. So that means she's not one of those that are on P. Diddy's list. So, yeah, Betty, I think just about every version of people down through history, one time or another, was part of a slave class or an indentured service class, however you want to say it. Kunta Kinte roots. I told a story a while back somebody was claiming that I didn't know what slavery was about because it wasn't taught in school because our government wanted to keep it out of the schools. Uh, that was I tried to explain to them that was an idiotic statement on its face. Back then, they didn't try to change history; they just told history. And I explained to them that I learned all about that in school. Plus, we had the miniseries Roots back when I was in junior high school. I said, so people were not, that's, I can't say nothing about the older adults because, they are who they are back in the day. But as far as my generation growing up, it was completely different. They act like because I'm a middle aged white guy that I'm like part of the problem, and it makes no sense, because supposedly I'm that group that's racist and misogynist and whatever other kind of thing you want to put a label you want to put on it. And plus, they said, I remember somebody I was having a conversation said, my generation helped pollute the world. And I tried to explain to them, no, it was my generation who started cleaning up the world. Because back in the 80s, when they started making a real conscious effort to do something about these kind of things. No, it's not. No, it's not my middle name. Rusty, I'll tell you later, but you better not repeat it, sir. But so I tried to explain it was my generation, our generation, who's ever on here, that started working with uh, cleaning up the atmosphere. Because it was us who worked on the aerosols and the AC systems to help with the ozone layer, and it's just worked that way through the ages or through the decades to make improvements. So I always want to debunk that deal that because I'm almost 60, uh, I'm not the 60-year-old of somebody who was 60 in the 80s or in the 70s. It's 2024. I'm 60 in 2024. Actually, it'll be 2025 when I'm 60, but different time. We're different people than the people before us. They automatically assume when you reach a certain age, they throw you in that category that's been that category for decades. Every 10 years, the people that are middle aged are now the problem. 10 years later, the people that are middle aged are now the problem. 10 years later, the people middle aged are now the problem. I call bullshit on that. You know, I don't want to sound like that journalist who got up there and was calling Elon Musk uh, bullshit on citizen journalism. They're just mad because citizen journalism does a better job than they do. Betty, my family is military too. Um, Half of them are criminals, half of them are military. My grandfather died in the field in France in World War II. Uh, my uncle got shot up in Vietnam. I had two cousins that retired from the Navy and the Coast Guard. They were part of Desert Storm. So yeah, I mean it's something that's dear to my heart. I just I when I think about stuff like the burning of the flag or how people protest that when was this country ever great, I think, you know what? Tell that to the men who fought in the actual wars, not these, the conflicts that our government's gotten us into. They, they, they pretty much set us up for failure. But even the ones that we haven't won, we just pretty much called a stalemate. We just got out of there. But I mean, my grandfather, I never got to meet my grandfather because of him fighting for this country. So he paid the ultimate sacrifice. And when I see somebody burning the flag or saying that this country's never been great, I say F you. You know, it's like when they say, make America great again, is y'all want us to go back to pre 1965. To me, when I hear make America great again, I hear things in my mind and heart. Make America great again means not the, I'm not talking about the social ramifications of the times, but the economics when we built things. You know what I mean? When this country, there was a time when a single income home could survive and still own two cars and buy a house and raise two, three children. You know, to me, that's what I think about when I think make America great again. You know, yes, I did. I've been watching that series. He threw down some facts. Now he's been fact checked since then. I seen where CNN was played that clip and talked about how wrong he was, and they tried to say that he was wrong on a few things. But I guarantee when they put that clip together to make that scene, they knew exactly what they were saying. It all come from some kind of a research that made sense, that is true, with all the information needed to make those statements. And I thought Billy Bob Thornton did a really good. Now he may not believe that in real life. He may think because he's Hollywood, but he did a good job in selling that scene. And I believe it to be, yeah. And I've heard that from a few people too about like it's. They talk about global warming or climate change in that scene, and he's like, "That's not what I worry about. I worry about us running out of oil before we have the ability to have an alternative source." And he said, "That's when you're going to see some real calamity." So, but they talk about. I don't know how they know this. We have like 120 years left of oil in most wells around the world. I would hope in 120 years that we do have something that's an alternative. Now, saying that, they could slow the production of oil down by just using nuclear power to do electricity, and then that's less oil you would need to power the power plants. It's either coal or fuel. Natural gas is another thing, but even then, they say that's a renewable source, but I don't know how that is. I really haven't dug deep into something like that. I like to say I knew more about it, but I don't. But natural gas, the thing with natural gas is, though, they talk about nuclear being dangerous, but natural gas is very dangerous. Uh, I'm sure you've seen many stories where somebody's house is completely blowed up and disintegrated, and it's spread all over the neighborhood because of a gas leak. Yeah, Rusty, I agree. We're taxed so much. And it's like one of the biggest, I hate the inheritance tax. That money's already been taxed. if somebody leaves a family member their money, why would the government feel the need to tax it again? Because that person's going to take that money and purchase things, and then they're going to be spending taxes, sales tax. You know what I mean? So it, they're just greedy. That's why I hope Elon and Vivek gets in there. And speaking of that, I'm jumping around the subject here, but I seen where the Department of Defense uh, failed their seventh audit, missing $824 billion. And when asked about it, I forget her name, but she just laughed and said that the person that asked her the question about it said that they didn't understand how audits work, that they've improved on their audits, that they passed 50% of their audit this time. I don't know what it was before, but I've had to do like full on inventory, you know, parts and stuff like that for companies and all their assets and everything. Um, that's an audit, and if you're more than 5% out, they start writing people up. If you're more than 15% out, they start seeing who they're going to fire. So hopefully every damn one of them's going to get fired, and hopefully Elon and Vivek can find out where that money went. $700 toilet seats. Yeah, you know, and that's the problem. They've and that person, I can't. I wish I remember her name, but she literally argued with the person asking her and talking to her about this because they call it waste, fraud, and abuse. And she said just because $824 billion is not accounted for, don't mean that it was wasted or there was fraud involved or they abused it, like $700 toilet seats. Well, what else do you think? If they don't know where the money is, somebody's got it. You know, and that's just the money we know that they have budgeted to it. Because, you know, they have covert money in their budget that's under different names and departments that's actually their money too. So, you know, that money's hidden. So we don't even know how much that is. It's so sad you can't trust your own government anymore. And our government's supposed to be for the people and by the people. And it somewhere it got off the rails. This is where term limits is going to help with that. If they just would finally get that passed. You know, they say, you know, Donald Trump is good for promises made, promises kept. And I don't think he's made that promise, but I wish he would. So we would actually have, you know, some kind of a system to where we can get that corruption out of there. And term limits is one of them. And I ain't even say like, you know, because to me, a president for 4 years seems kind of short to have to go through this process every 4 years. You know, what the senators are like 6 years. You know, you'd think the president would be 6 years too. But, you know, that's our system. And you know, to me, term limits don't even mean 6 years to me. It could be 12 years. You know what I mean? It could be, you know, 18 years, just something less than what with an open end deal till they're so old they freeze at the podium when they're talking to the press. How many of our Congress, senators and congressmen and women alike, are so old? How many of them been up to the podium in the last 2 years that's had some kind of old person incident? Nancy Pelosi has. Mitch McConnell just did. Our president does. I mean, and then you have the all the Feinstein. You know what I mean? She should have retired a long time ago, and then but they just tried to keep her in office till she died. Never meant to be a career. That's not what it's all about. Yeah, but I mean, look at Biden has been. Take Bernie Sanders. Biden has been a career politician for decades, since the 80s. Look at Bernie Sanders, who's never worked any other job other than the government. He's never held a regular job. Him being in the Senate has been his career, which I'm not saying he's corrupt, and not to point anybody out, we'll just say, and I've mentioned it before, 50% of our Congress are millionaires now. Now I bet if you search all that, how many of them went into that wasn't, to where that 174th, of course that was a lot less when a lot of them started, that $174,000 was the most they ever made in their life. And then all of a sudden, a few years later, they're millionaires. Yeah, Rusty. I mean, yeah, let's talk about that. The hurricane relief down in the Carolinas and stuff. They literally are sleeping in tents. At least when Katrina hit, FEMA purchased all those little mobile homes and made mobile home cities to give these people places to live while their homes were being rebuilt or replaced or whatever they needed to have done. Why aren't they doing that here? I mean, they literally act like those people don't exist. It's disappointing. Hopefully, although it'll be January, there's got to be something they can do for them now. And I can only speculate as why they're not caring enough to do anything about it. Yeah, Bernie Sanders, if I'm not mistaken, there, Rusty. Hell, he had his honeymoon in Russia back in the day. You know what I mean? And he's got a thing for government control. That's why he likes socialism so much. He wants the government to control everything. And the only reason he wants the government to control everything is because he's part of the government. Now, if he wasn't part of the government, he'd be just like us and say, no, can't be having that. Yeah, lobbyists do own this country for now. I really feel like if we don't get in a World War III here, there's we're on the brink of some positive changes. Will we see 100% of what we talk about here that we would like to see change? Maybe not, but a portion of it would go a long way to improve this country a lot. Hey, America. Yeah, run for FEMA. I seen where FEMA put out and it's not the first time. I think they did it back in 2018. How to survive a nuclear strike. You know, kind of oddball timing. I mean, it's like it seems like all of our world leaders are all wanting to get into this fight. Now you got UK and France saying that they're going to actually send soldiers to Ukraine. You got North Korea already fighting with the Russians in Ukraine. You got China who got caught severing the communication lines, the underwater communication lines. Now they have a story. Of course, they're all going to have a story that was accidental. But let's be real. Putin feels like the whole world, all of NATO, is actually it's who he's fighting, not just the Ukraine people, but Ukrainian people. But he feels like he's in a war with us, which we make no bones about it. And just like I was saying the other day, that I've said again, it took a U.S. American operator to launch those missiles that Biden gave him permission to use into Russia, because we don't give our technology like that out. So it was us who pushed that button. And we may not have pushed the button, but I guarantee we probably did the whatever they call it, GPS targeting, to get it to its destination, because that's something they would not give out. So we helped determine where those missiles went. Why are we even, it's one thing to give them a little aid, and I disagree with it, period. But if we are, we are. Getting physically involved like that, it can lead to nothing good, nothing at all. And I am hoping that Trump is in conversations with both the leaders. And I'm hoping he's calling the Prime Minister of UK and what's his name with the trans wife in France, and telling them to slow your roll. I seen where, and I was going to mention this, that the United Nations, UN, made a statement about if Russia targets any military bases in any other country besides Ukraine, that they are prepared to launch a full-on strike on all the missile silos in Russia. But Russia says that if the United States or UK fires any more long-range missiles for Ukraine into their country, that he will strike the creator of the weapon that was launched into his country, which means us or UK. Either way, it's going to be a military base or something over there, and it ain't going to do nothing but spark World War III. Because if NATO is making that, or the UN, whatever, is making that uh, threat, basically, more than likely, Putin's kind of the person that would basically go, then I might as well just shoot the moon and shoot everything at y'all. Because, why risk getting a retaliated strike that's going to hit all his military assets to be able to fire his weapons out to the rest of us? This shit's got to stop. It has to stop. So I'm hoping, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are too, that President Trump can get this worked out. And it may take time to work out a negotiated stop of all the war itself or whatever between the two countries. It's probably not going to happen overnight, but a ceasefire may happen with negotiated talks. And we've seen that before, where some negotiations will break down and somebody will make an attack, and then they'll retaliate, and then they'll do their little thing back and forth, and then they'll go back to their corners and then come back to do some more negotiating with another ceasefire. That may happen, but it's got to be better than what's going on right now. Hey, Rock, nice to see you. So that's probably been my main topic for the last couple of weeks, this whole deal with the missiles. And because, now that North Korea, and did you all see where Russian soldiers were killed by friendly fire from the North Korean soldiers that are there to help them out? Apparently the language barrier, somebody got their instructions crossed, and the North Koreans attacked an area where the Russians were at and killed some Russians. So that's kind of embarrassing for Putin, because, and it's bad at it's bad enough that you're fighting a war that your soldiers are dying, that they get killed by friendly fire over what's the good word I'm looking for here? Where they're bumbling over each other because they speak different languages, and you'd think they would have translators in there that would do a better job than that. But it's bad enough that Russia feels like they're not just fighting Ukraine, they're fighting the United States, they're fighting the UK, now they're fighting France. But now Ukraine is now fighting Russia, North Korea, China, and I'm sure somewhere in there Iran's going to be stepping up something. You almost, with all this going on, everybody forgetting about this Israeli conflict. That's stuff that still needs to be handled too. It's a strange time to be alive right now. It really is. And what's funny also is how all these legal cases, and everybody's claiming, they're doing it because he's president, because he's got immunity now. No. That's not the reason. They know they don't have a case. Case is and that they're afraid that they'll have something, uh, because a lot of that stuff, let's be honest, they did some illegal shenanigans to get some of these cases brought to a trial, and especially with the whatever the hush money case, the 34 counts, which now makes him a felon or whatever, which he hasn't been sentenced yet, so he's not an official felon. I wish they would quit saying that. So he's not a convicted felon yet because he hasn't been sentenced. And more than likely, that will get appealed before that ever happens. So it's just another case that's going to go by. You know, everybody talks like he's this big bad criminal, but they've not got nothing to stick ever, because the cases they are bringing up against him are bogus. And more than likely, and of course, if you talk to somebody on the left, they're saying, well, they're just doing that because he has immunity now. No, that's not it. Democrats do love the war machine, Betty. It does make them rich. There's got to be a way to make that, if you're making money off this deal, to make it a war crime for you. Just saying. Of course, you know, I'm not president, so I can say that. Although he probably says it behind closed doors. Oh, that's crazy. You know, when it's talking about how the Department of Defense failed their 7th audit, did you see where Macy's, one of their employees, stole $154 million over the last couple of years through fake, fraudulent, drop ship charges, like through Amazon and stuff like that. And none of that money actually went to anything. It just was stolen by this individual, who they are obviously pressing charges against. But how does a company not notice $154 million? Is that not crazy? I definitely don't understand it. I've pretty much covered everything I wanted to talk about tonight. Any of you guys got something you want to talk about? Hop it in the chat. We'll have a conversation about it. I'm sure I can wing it. Oh man, I've been trying to do car content for the last 2 days. It ain't been working out for me. But those who follow my car content, I'll have a video out in the next day or two. Probably be my last one for a little bit, due for certain reasons. I won't be out in the garage for a few weeks, which will bum me out, but it is what it is. I'm trying to think. Oh, I seen where it's like, you know, Kamala's been on vacation in Hawaii. Now she's finally made some kind of a statement, for whatever reason. I don't know, because it was more word salad. I mean, it really didn't. She didn't say anything. Yeah, that the vaccine deal. I've seen where they're blaming it. I don't know why they're still trying to cover this company who created the vaccine, but they're calling it complications for long COVID. Have you guys heard that? So if you ever had COVID, like I've had COVID twice. First time I had it was right at the beginning of all that, and I thought I was dying. The second time I got it, it was just like a bad flu. But they're saying once you have COVID, there's you could have complications for years. The stuff that's unintended consequences that the virus caused in your body that you may not know, right away. I don't see how they can blame that on COVID. I think they can more blame it on the vaccine. Now, saying that, I never got the shot. Yeah, Rusty, our government is in free fall. I'm telling you, I've never seen so much. And I was just saying this the other day. All your three-letter department agencies are having having paper shredding parties, and I believe they are. Yeah, Betty, that's what I'm saying. That long COVID stuff is probably actually from the vaccine. The thing is like I got a relative who's having problems, and they're saying that it's possibly from because she's had COVID too, but she never got the shot. So to me, they're just blaming everything that they can't diagnose right away on long COVID. Just like back when it was first going on, you remember like if somebody got in a car accident and died, and then when they did the autopsy or whatever, they test like for, I guess they test for alcohol and all this other kind of stuff. And if the person had signs of COVID, they said they died of COVID. Y'all remember that? Yeah, COVID is a weaponized flu. And, that goes back to what I was saying the other day. I know y'all that's been in more than one of my live streams probably get tired of hearing this. COVID was one virus. In Ukraine, we have 25 of those research labs for infectious diseases where they're doing gain of function research. 25. What happens if those facilities get compromised? There's far worse viruses out there to die from than what COVID was. I mean, they got stuff that'll eat your flesh. They got very painful viruses. I mean, COVID was bad, but they have a lot worse. And if one of these facilities gets compromised by a bombing, how many viruses get released into the world? Because that is worse than a nuclear bomb. Because instead of one area being contaminated, now you do have your mushroom cloud and stuff that carries, but the viruses know no border. They get spread through the entire world. And it may be a virus or viruses that we don't have a vaccine for. So how much of the population would that affect possibly? Over two countries at war over territory. Now, granted, Putin can say what he wants. I don't think that he had the right to do what he did. Uh, but we're past that now. Now we're here where we're at. Now what do we do? I mean, there's got to be a way to settle this and make some kind of a treaty that guarantees Russia to never do this again with Ukraine. No, they're going to have to give up some of the kind of concession of land because that's what Putin's after. But if it's minimal amount and lives are saved, and there's some kind of a treaty signed to where that won't happen again, unless there'll be international consequences. Not that, that's part of the problem too, is basically they've been kind of threatening Russia with the idea of Ukraine being part of the UN, part of NATO. Which Russia tried to be part of that back in the 90s, and basically Bill Clinton told him to go get. So if you want people to be better than they are, or to not be so, it's a good word I'm looking for, where they're trying to conquer land or just take over another country, whatever you want to call it. If they're in there with everybody in the process to keep international rules in place that everybody has to abide by, or they get kicked out and face international consequences, whether that be sanctions or however they do it. But it would stop a lot of that. What's this? Where'd the guide stuff? Yeah, still, that's what I'm saying. When it comes to biological, they we're all affected with that. You know what I mean? That's unintended consequences. You get two people warring against each other, and then when something happens, for one thing, these damn research labs need to be closed down, and there needs to be some kind of international law to stop doing that kind of crap. There's enough stuff out there that naturally comes around that kills us from time to time, to where we got to make it more efficient to do it to us. Mysterious hospital staff showing up at hospitals and working night shift. And Rusty, you probably remember too, probably all you guys do. They got government subsidies if you were in there in the hospital, because the government pretty much, if you got sick, that if you had COVID, you were covered no matter what your insurance level was, or if you had insurance at all. So the hospitals were guaranteed a certain amount of money if they called it COVID, if they had you in there under those guidelines. So the hospitals were making money on everybody having COVID. And I mean, you gotta pay your people, you gotta pay the bills, but some facilities got really rich off that. That's where I was saying, like the accident. Get in a car accident, died of COVID. Get a staph infection, you don't go take care of it, you end up going sepsis and you die. You died of COVID when it's completely unrelated. But that's how they made their money. Oh, that's good, Betty. Producing vaccines is a good thing as long as they are proven to be. Now, there's always going to be side effects for certain people. You can't. We all know this. On every drug, there's some portion of the population that is allergic to it or has some kind of bad side effect from it. But if it helps the masses, uh, you know, it's what you got to do. Yeah, Rusty, and that's what, oh, Como did in New York. Put sick people, and they knew that the elderly, and it's like me, I'm obese. Uh, I'm like the prime person that would probably die of COVID, even though I got COVID and I was seriously sick and I didn't die. But I had a cousin that died that was half my size, and he went into the hospital, was in there for like 10 days, got out of the hospital. 2 days later, he died. They say he died of COVID. Yeah, Betty, I don't think anybody's a fan of Big Pharma. Um, Once again, that's where lobbyists pretty much control our government. That's why we got to get the corruption out of there. We got to get back to being for the people, by the people mentality, and set them term limits if possible, which I never did understand why somebody would not agree with keeping the government, keeping the integrity of our government as high as possible, and then want to vote against something that would help keep corruption out of it. When that comes to a vote, and it will, because I believe that's one of the things they're going to try to do. When something like that, when that comes to a vote, you're going to see who the corrupted ones are, because they're the ones that's going to vote no. Now, all the Democrats are going to vote no. Kind of hard to tell. Well, they're all corrupt, but are they doing it because they are not wanting to lose a payday, or are they doing it just because it's what something Republicans want? Actually, they ain't even what Republicans want. It's what MAGA wants. Because to me, MAGA is not a Republican uh, philosophy. Uh, it's taken over the Republican Party, but MAGA is not the Republican ideas originally. It, it's the common man's ideas. And how a billionaire figured that out. And it's like, I'm sure you guys have seen his penthouse in New York. I mean, he really spends a lot of money to look rich, basically. And it just seems funny that a guy that's that I call him eccentric to want all those kind of things the way he does, um, and still tap into what we want, what we need, and understand it. I don't think he did it just to get elected. I think he did it because he's got this thing about fixing things. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed his personality over. I mean, if you go back way back when, back in the '80s, he likes to get involved in causes and things that for some reason somebody else couldn't fix, whether it be a government entity or another company or whatever. But he likes to be that one that can fix it. And how does he say it? He fixes it under budget. He's got to think. I'll give you an example. Uh, the embassy in Israel. Many presidents promised to do it, never did. I mean, what's funny is they actually made promises to do it and didn't do it. And then when he promised to do it and did it, a lot of people got upset about it. But what about all the previous presidents who promised to do it? And they never did, but they did promise to do it. They didn't get upset with those people. They got upset with him because he actually got it done. And I forget how much. One of you guys might know. Tell me in chat how much they said it was going to cost to do it, and they were talking about building something from scratch. Of course, like I said, well, Rusty, you should never trust anybody 100%. Don't trust me 100%. I tell people all the time when I say something, don't take my word for it. Look it up. Do your own research. See if I'm right. See if I'm wrong. I can tell you if I'm wrong, it's not intentionally, but there's no way to prove that to somebody unless it's such a small amount that you realize that it's not intentional. Now, if it's like our mainstream news, which everything is a lie, what can you do about that? But the embassy that he had done in Israel, I know some of y'all probably remember the story. There, I think it was a big amount of money because of all the security stuff. It's like $1 billion, if I'm not mistaken. And he went there, and they, instead of building new, I forget the building. It was some building that had everything that we needed to make an embassy. We had to make improvements, obviously. So we was able, and I think Israel either gave the property or gave it to us at a discount because it was a government building, if I'm not mistaken. Don't trust myself. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. Depends on where I'm at and what I'm doing, whether I trust myself or not. Yeah, Rusty, I can't answer that one way or another myself. I don't do deep dives into religious stuff. Um, I don't consider myself a religious person, although I'm not like secular or anything like that. I know there's a higher power out, absolutely, but I don't. Uh, you know, I deal with the Ten Commandments basically as best as possible. I try to be a good person on its face. Just being a good person, in a village when I never want my actions to interfere with somebody else's life. in a bad way, and so I pretty much keep to myself. And I don't I don't like to sling judgment, although we all judge. Uh, but I'm not one to tell somebody they can't or they're wrong for being the way they are or whatever. So yeah, religion is not something I can opine on. Yeah, yeah, Rusty. It's truer words have never been spoken before. The only thing I know is I'm not God. Oh, yes, that's crazy. But finish up on the embassy in Israel. Like I said, I think it was $1 billion, and he had it renovated for like 600 million. So he likes fixing things. He likes doing it for. He likes beating. If they say it's going to take this long, this amount of money, he likes doing it faster and cheaper, and still have the quality that is expected in the end result. So saying that, he's seen our country was broken, and he has this true desire to want to fix it. I believe that. Like I said, I don't know how he taps into all of us. Like me, I have no money. Um, I mean, I've had decent jobs in my lifetime, but I that all went away a few years back. So I have no money. I have no way of earning extra money. So, but yet I still feel like a multi-billionaire understands me. It's a good thing. Ain't that the truth, Betty? That is the truth. I've seen straight up atheists who claim they're atheists. When something goes awry, they start saying, "Oh, God, help me," and stuff like that. They start praying to God, and they claim they're atheists. I think that's just, and I've actually said that in the past, but to me, today, as I look at it, when you want to claim that, basically you're wanting to make an excuse for you to do whatever you want, and you claiming there's no consequences. I think there's consequences in the end for all of us. Now, where we actually go when we leave this world, I don't know, but I feel like there are consequences. If anything, it's what you leave behind. You know, whether it be you like to leave people with good memories of you. You don't want them to think bad. At least for me, I don't want people to think to have uh, when I pass on to think, oh, I'm glad he's gone because he was an asshole or whatever. I'd rather have somebody uh, miss me, if that makes sense. Yeah, you guys see Tucker Carlson did an interview on one of those programs on Fox Nation, and he was saying, because they were asking him what he thought about if Joe Biden's the one giving the orders to have Ukraine allow them to shoot the missiles, and he said as somber as he could, no, I don't think Joe Biden's pulling the strings. I think Satan is doing it. Something purely evil is controlling our government right now. Betty, I'm medically retired. I had to quit work before I was ready to quit work, if that makes sense to you. Um, I had to take an early retirement, and then I had to take disability, which y'all know. I mean, I don't get me wrong, it's not bad money because I make more than most of the people I know that are on disability. Um, but with the inflation the way it's been for the last 3 years, I mean, I was doing okay. I was disabled when Trump was in office, and I was doing okay. My ability to pay bills is deteriorating. Every couple months, something is more than it was, more than it was, more than it was. And, like I said, I have no ability to make extra money. See, when you're off, whether you're just straight up retired or like me, I took a I retired early, and I took a partial payment and a small, a lump sum and then a small payment deal, but it's not a lot. And like I said, with the lack of ability, like back in the day, I could work a job. If I needed extra money, I wouldn't work the second job. Even when I was a boss for FedEx, I worked a second job before because I wanted to make extra money. And I've, I've lost my ability to do that. I'm not capable of doing that no more. So when you have no way of expanding your income to meet the needs of the screwed up environment we are in when it comes to our purchasing power. Well, I'm not in debt, Betty. I own my house. Now I have a second home. I say I'm not in debt, but my granddaughter lives in that house, and she pays the house payment. So I don't have a house payment. I own the house I'm living in. I own all my cars. I got 5 vehicles. Uh, you can't hardly stand people. It's funny, but you can't hardly stand people, Betty. I can't hardly stand. My body started attacking me in ways I cannot even describe to you. Uh, it's like when I go to get up from this seat here after this live stream, I will have to use my cane to walk to my kitchen to get me something to drink when we're done here. But I have, there's just things I can't do no more. It's like working on my cars, my car content. Anybody watch that stuff? My ability to work on vehicles has diminished so much in the last 3 years, to the point to where what used to take me, let's say, 8 hours to do takes me 2 weeks to do, and I ain't kidding, because I have to do it in short spurts. So what used to take 8 hour a day takes me 2 weeks to do, and it's getting worse. So yeah, Betty, yeah, it's this whole administration's been a disaster. Everything they touch turns to shit. I mean, they focus on the wrong things. I mean, they wanted to make sure they had men who wore dresses in their administration. They wanted to make sure they had a certain amount of minorities in there, and that's a fine thing. That's fine, but they got to be qualified. They did. That's their problem. They worry too much about the DEI thing and not enough about their qualifications to do their damn jobs. And the open border deal. That's just plain evil. They literally have destroyed our financial stability. I mean, there's the repercussion of paying out money to all these illegal migrants. It's going to be felt for years to come. Yeah, Betty, to not get too deep into the medical stuff, I don't like to talk about my own medical stuff because it's a grocery list of things. I can tell you that you say you're on no medication. I'm on 9 different medications. I've I've had 2 surgeries. They won't do any more. They told me I just got to live with what I got till I can't no more. Um, I mean, it's hard to explain. I have a short amount of time to do anything, whether it be standing, walking, sitting. Uh, I can sit longer than I can stand, obviously, but uh, still, after I sit for a little bit, getting up and walking is really hard. But I can't. It's 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 just not fun. I mean, I'll be 60 next year, next summer, and I have been like this since I was 55, 54, 54. Uh, my health started deteriorating when I was 54 years old. And like I said, I was not ready to retire. So I didn't, I was too young to retire. So my retirement was severely diminished from my job that I had. And of course, disability, um, it's only enough to get by. It, I get by better than some, but yeah, Rusty, that is true. They do want to take away our speech and our guns. I only have one thing to say about the firearms. If it ever comes to the day to where they say they're going to come to my door and collect my firearms, is the day I turn into a fugitive. And it'll probably be the last day I take a breath because there probably a fight will ensue at that point. Uh, because I grew up in a world that said I had the right to carry my gun, or at least own guns. Not always had the right to carry them, at least concealed carry, at least in my state. But now, I can conceal carry, open carry, don't have to disassemble the gun to be in a vehicle. So, our state's pretty good with that. Uh, but if it ever comes to the point where they're going to come after my weapons and tell me I'm not allowed to have them no more, not going to happen. Because once you do that, then we're just sheep, and if you turn over your guns, then you deserve to get what you get. You know what I'm saying? If you agree to that, it's like free speech. We've been arguing for the free speech, how they've been trying to stifle it, trying to claim hate speech is not free speech, or they try to shadow ban and change the algorithms for social media because they don't like the way a certain person talks about stuff, and and all this other kind of stuff. Uh, so they've tried their best to stomp down free speech. But the thing is a lot of it's took that as we just need to talk louder and talk more. So you'll have to make it a law, and then once again I'll become a fugitive, saying now I'm allowed to say certain things again. Because all this other stuff has not been anything that's legal. They do it through social media and government intervention on all these big tech companies and everything. And then they try to throw that into the narrative through all the mainstream media about hate speech. The thing is nobody likes hate speech, I don't think. But if you want to sit there and be as condescending or even racist or whatever, that's hateful. If all you're doing is talking, I may not like what you have to say, but I'll fight for your right to say it. The thing with people like that, they say like misinformation and all that stuff. I hate that term. The whole thing about misinformation. Okay, so if somebody is standing up on a podium and they're telling you lies, that's their right to do it. But then you have the right to counter that. So you have people who, if you're listening to this person and they're telling you lies or telling you hateful things, then you have this other person over here that is just countering everything that they're saying. Then you're hearing both sides of the story, and then you get to choose which conversation you want to be a part of, and then condemn the other one. If they have the right to say it, you just condemn it. But our country's turned into a bunch of wusses on that. They're allowing a bunch of college professors and career politicians tell us what we can or cannot do. And it did not work out for them, as we can tell by the way the world is right now. It's making that turn. It's that pendulum swinging back. It swung way over here, and what the hell are you talking about? You know what they say? The To tell the truth, but the truth don't sell. Now it's swinging back. Hopefully, it'll swing back for a very long time. At least I hope it's beyond the time that I'm not here anymore. Yeah, Betty. Yeah, you're exactly right on there. People get butt hurt over the dumbest things. It's like I've literally seen people get so upset over the weirdest shit. It's just like, really, this you have it so good in this world, living in this country, that you're being butt hurt over the pettiest dumb shit I ever heard. And of course, a lot of this stuff, mainstream media tried to tell us, or try to tell people, not just not us, but everybody, but what you should be butthurt over. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that comedian who made that joke about the island of trash with Puerto Rico. Not a funny joke. Not nothing to be butthurt over. It's just he tried a joke and it didn't land. Uh, But you've seen how they treated that in the media. They almost treated it like, well, they tried to make it pretty much that, I heard part of them say, well, Donald Trump said that. Then it's like Donald Trump approved this guy's monologue of his jokes and stuff. Comedians don't give people their jokes that they're going to tell. They just go out there and tell it. That's the whole idea of it. Nobody knew what he was going to say till he said it. But yet they want to hold everybody, Trump and all them accountable for a bad joke a comedian said because the rest of his jokes were funny. He made one bad joke out of a dozen or whatever. I mean, most Puerto Ricans didn't. I mean, they didn't find it funny, but they didn't feel like they were butthurt over it. That's something that mainstream media, the government, tried to push that narrative. It's and the Joy Reids and them of the world. I've said it before. The rhetoric they talk about Trump's rhetoric. The rhetoric, like women like Joy Reid or Rachel Maddow and all them. The dumb stuff that they say. That's rhetoric that is just. But it needs. That's where there needs to be a counter conversation about that. You're saying this, we're calling bullshit. We have the right to call bullshit on you. Without free speech, we wouldn't have that right. They're trying to, stomp down free speech and over there in UK. If you say something, I guess like offensive, that's offensive to a protected class of people or whatever, they will throw you in jail. Glad they don't do that here. Betty, the only people that ever speak bad of Trump are the ones he fired. You ever notice that? You tried it when people talk about, well, his chief of staff said he's this and his so-and-so said he's that. And blah, blah. I said, okay, weren't they fired? They didn't say that before they were fired. It's not like they quit and rage, do a little rage quit because they were so offended by something he did or they thought he was just off his rocker or whatever. They didn't say nothing bad about him at all until they're fired. Kind of like John Bolton. Talks trash about Trump, but that's because Trump fired him. The general that claimed he said that soldiers, because they were supposedly at the Arlington Cemetery, and he said, what all these soldiers have in common? They're all suckers and losers. They all died for a country that didn't appreciate them. I added that last part, but the first part's what that general. But yet there was 5 other people I think they said was there, but none of them. The other 5 said he never said that. But yet they still harp on the one guy who got fired that said that, as if that's true, and the other 5 people are lying. It's dumb. Dumb, 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 dumb. Guys, I think I have covered everything. I want to, when I do my live stream 6:30 Friday afternoon, I hope that we can have a better conversation about what's going on between Ukraine and Russia. But we'll see. You never know. But I think I'm going to close this out. And I always want to say I appreciate you guys stopping in. I always enjoy this here. I believe it or not, I like this a lot of times better than the Friday afternoon one because the chat goes so fast I can't have it. Sometimes I miss what is being said in chat, and I like interacting with the chat room a lot, as you can tell. Uh, but so sometimes the chat room, which I guess it's okay because that means more people are coming in and viewing and sticking around, listening to what I got to say. Although I don't know why you guys listen to what I got to say. I mean, I'm just spitting my opinion. But anyway, saying that, you too, Betty. I'm gonna close this out. I may see some of y'all Friday afternoon. If not, hopefully I'll see you back here next Tuesday night, Wednesday morning for another night out edition. So until then, this is Jimmy Pockets, aka James of Empty Pockets Garage. Y'all have a good night. I'll see you next time. I'm out of here.